Hey and welcome back, I'm Alana and today you'll be joining me as I discuss Horse by Geraldine Brooks. This will be a spoiler-free review. The only spoiler I will give right now is the fact that I absolutely loved this book. So as a little bit of context, Geraldine Brooks is a well-established author. She's written things like The Secret Chord, People of the Book, Year of Wonders, which I have read, as well as Caleb's Crossing and March. And now also Horse, which I was lucky enough to get an advanced reader copy or an ARC through work. So very grateful to have been able to read this early. And wow, it's my favourite book of the year so far. Let's start with that. It's also my favourite book from Geraldine Brooks. Before this, it would have been People of the Book and then closely followed by Year of Wonders. Now it's Horse. So let's just go ahead and chuck the image up here and let's start off with saying what this book is about. So we are told going into this that this is a 3-strand narrative set between 3 different timelines. So we have the 1850s where we follow Jarrett, who is a black man and a groom, to the real-life racehorse Lexington. He is also a slave and it's his experience with slavery and his life upon the way. Then we have the narrative from 1956, I think it is, where we follow Martha, who is also based off of a real-life person who is an art collector. And then finally we have the 2019 narrative where we follow Theo, who is a young black man who is doing a PhD in art, and Jess, who is a young white woman who is a scientist at the Smithsonian. And what links these 3 narrative strands is the portrait of a racehorse, which is also, you guessed it, based off of a real portrait by the painter Thomas J. Scott. So there is a lot going on within this novel, and one thing that I really appreciated that the author did was you could tell the amount of research she had done going into this, because each profession that she writes from feels very real and actualized. And what I mean by that is that you have professions as a racehorse trainer, jockey, art critic, PhD student, scientist, probably more that I'm forgetting. But from all of these different professions, when you're reading it, it feels like the author has done this job before. I also really appreciated the horsemanship that was written into this one. It felt very authentic to my own experience, having grown up with horses and having that bond with the animal. And just all the terminology and things that she uses, that's what we used as well growing up, so was spot on. Another thing that I really loved about this novel was the creditation that it gave to black people who were crucial to the American racing scene. It puts a highlight on the black trainers and jockeys who were overlooked and not credited because of the color of their skin, because of their slave status, because of their freeman status, which then still left a mark upon them in the eyes of the white people within this time. And the author does actually state in her acknowledgements that these people were overshadowed and overlooked for the roles that they played at this time, and they were actually crucial. So I would classify this novel as part historical fiction and part contemporary fiction, and that is because the 2019 portions of this are your contemporary fiction with your characters that are fully made up, and then your 1850s and 1950s timelines draw from real life people or events. For example, Lexington was a real-life racehorse in the American racing scene who then went on to sire a whole bunch of winners as well and to be a very prolific stallion at stud. The author has said that Jarrett was mainly made up, but that there is a description of him as Black Jarrett, the groom of Lexington, with one of Thomas J. Scott's paintings. So Jarrett was a real figure, but the author couldn't find anything on him, so that was when she discovered that she had a main character in the mix there that she could fully explore further. Martha Jackson, also a historical figure, especially within the art scene, and also the tidbit of the fact that the skeleton of Lexington was shelved in an attic somewhere during its timeline and then ended up getting moved to a different museum and to be put on display. That was something that the author said in the acknowledgements that she learnt when she got to sit across the table from someone at the Smithsonian or something like that. So she makes it very clear in the afterward things that were grounded in fact and then the things that she has more of a fictional approach to. Like I said, a lot of research went into this novel and you can tell. As for the plot of this novel, like I did say, this is my favourite Geraldine Brooks book to note, and that is the fact that this kicked off right from the start and kept on going. The pace throughout was very well done. Unlike some of her other novels, which I felt I had to give 50 or 100 pages to fully get into, they had a slower build and then the payoff was there and I enjoyed the novels. The Secret Chord especially did this for me, but Horse just kicked off from the start and just went for it. And I'm very, very grateful for that, because usually I have to give a Geraldine Brooks novel more time to fully delve into, and this just had me from the get-go. Now, I don't know if that is because of the horse aspect and of my own upbringing with horses, if that made me pay attention more. I think it's more down to the fact that there were 3 different timeline strands, and it flicked between them and between different perspectives as well, because you get multiple perspectives across this novel, and I think that shook up the pacing and just kept it going. I will also say that this is definitely a book to savor and not to binge read. You will get more out of this if you sit with it and read it across multiple weeks and just take it as it comes, rather than try to smash read it just to say that you've read it. Don't do that. Which is not what I did either. I read this over the course of 2 or 3 weeks, I think, and thoroughly enjoyed it. As for the characters, they felt fully realised and very individual to the story. No 2 characters sounded the same, and the characters also reflected restraints that they had through their upbringings. For example, there's Jess. Some of how she sees the world and how she sees as it should be are not how Theo, the young black PhD student who she meets along the way, it's not his experiences of the world. And that is the difference between growing up white and growing up black. And I really, really loved that you can see both sides of this. So you see Jess going, well, that shouldn't be such a big deal. And then you see Theo going, well, it kind of has to be, because otherwise there can be repercussions for me. This is similar in the 1850s timeline with Jarrett and Mary Barr, who is the young daughter of the family that he is enslaved to. She will often visit the stables and try and treat him normally or whatnot, and he has to be very wary of that, which is very hard to read at times throughout this, because I'm hopeful the world we live in now is different, but through Theo's chapters you still see that there is still that racism element and there is still more work to be done. So just even comparing those 2 timelines and characters was another really interesting thing that this book did. So yeah, this book does discuss a lot of big themes. There's also a love for art and a love for science and a love for animals and horses that comes through this very, very well. And overall, I think the story is very well balanced and well paced. It is definitely hard-hitting at points, but there is also this sense of hope that strands throughout it. I will say though, beware the gut punch. There is a point in this story which had me nearly crying in my local grilled store, restaurant, whatnot, as I was eating my lunch on my work break, and I'm trying to hold it together, and where was I at? I was here in the book, and I'm trying not to cry in a public place while I eat my burger and my chips, and beware the gut punch. So overall, Horse is a heartfelt story that does delve into deeper topics and is very fully researched and realised, and it's my favourite from this author so far. I'm very interested to see how other people find it. So far within the circles that I've seen, especially in the indie bookstore circles, it's been doing very, very well, but of course that could also be that the author is established, so people are going to pick it up more because she's a bigger name. all things to consider. So those were my spoiler-free thoughts on Horse by Geraldine Brooks. I'm very glad to have read this one, and if you want to see any more of my thoughts on it, you can go to my Instagram page, which is under the same handle, @thebookcasebandit, where I did a post, this one, on the feelings that this book invoked for me. So that's going to be it for this video. Let me know in the comments down below if you'll be picking up this novel, or if you've picked up any of her books before and how you found them. Thank you so much for joining me and for hanging out. I will see you sometime soon. Bye!